Welcome to the opening round of Season 5 of the ISR AIC, and what a spectacular start we have for you today. For the first time in 5 years, we are returning to round number 1 here at Sydney Motorsport Park, and this isn't just any race. Tonight marks the first ever night race in the championship's history, the Sydney Super Night. Now the engines are roaring under the floodlights, the tension is electric, and this has been months in the work here at Sydney Motorsport Park. There's going to be some serious anticipation, and will be interesting to see who will rise under the challenge, those unique challenges that a night race represents. Now, we're here with a mix of seasoned veterans and eager newcomers, but let's get ready to go racing. And joining me once again is the man, the myth, the legend, Season 2 champion Josh Martin. Welcome along and welcome back, Josh.
Thanks, Toby. It's good to be back. It's been a bit of a time away, but I'm so excited. And of course, like you said, our first night race was well for this season. Very, very excited to see what it goes.
Exactly that. So Sydney Motorsport Park, another Australian destination on round number 1 on the calendar, and it'll be very interesting to see who gets underway. Will it be round number 1 winner of Season 4, Kevin Jacobs? Let's see what will happen. Qualifying begins. Issues for Josh Martin and Callum Spencer. See them line up at the back of the grid, and then it is that man, reigning champion Kevin Jacobs, only managing to manage a lackluster P19. Valerio Campagnari returns alongside newcomer Tom McDonald for Manor Motorsport, and then it is Josh Wood alongside Ed Cantwell, Kevin Jacobs' teammate, having a better debut than the reigning champion. Christian Vrazilov will line up against Iron Bruiser Gareth Lennon, lining up in P13, and then it's the two F1 tribute helmets of Vettel and Alonso, respectively, of Pedersen and Anderson. Then Jonathan Carrero will line up P10 alongside debutant Craig McDonald for Macca Motorsport. Philip Blum, a new team and a new name, lining up alongside Osboo's Racing Now's Marcus Townend. Then it'll be Olav Odben taking up P6, and top 5 for James Underhill. Had a good season out in Season 4. Now Andrew Pavia lines up in P4. Colin McAllister, his best ever qualifying results, he lines up in P3. And then it is Danny Diaz and Toby Byrne locking out that front row. Now, very interesting stuff as we head into this, Josh, because Danny Diaz and Toby Byrne, they both took the super soft tyres to start the race with, and we're going to see how they get on. Behind them is a hard compound starting Colin McAllister. But let's see how we get underway as we get ready for those 5 red lights. And it is lights out, and away we go for season number 5 of the ISR AIC. And it is Toby Byrne maintaining that lead, but it looks like Colin McAllister might be having a look up the inside of Danny Diaz immediately. Despite being on the harder compound of tyres, he's got a really good start. Looking up into turn 2 now, he's throwing it to the inside. It's side-by-side action between the Scotsman and the Mexican just holding firm on this occasion. And Andrew Pavia looking feisty, Josh, behind on them super soft tyres.
Yeah, this is such a crucial phase of the race for Toby, obviously on that super soft tyre. He needs to build out a gap so he can clear himself of the cars behind. It's going to run a little bit wide as well, backing everybody up. And we've got Craig McDonald who's also going off, there's chaos everywhere. Douglas Anderson, Gareth Lennon, Chris Pedersen, all having chaos. And Toby, it looks like new season, new trouble already.
And this is exactly what you do not want to see, but it has happened. Martin says, I'm out, and understandably swears in his team advising to go to P0. That is not the start that the Season 2 champion would have wanted, especially looking like he was going to be eager on them super soft tyres. But yeah, the first round, everyone a bit more aggressive than usual, and it sees them in trouble. Now Andrew Pavia looking very active in the rearview mirror of McAllister. Obviously the only other starter in the top 5 on them super soft tyre. Actually, I think that's a lie. Sorry, Underhill as well. But obviously the man in the best position to, no, I was correct, so he is the only top 5 starter other than Byrne. So Pavia will be wanting to make places on them hard compound tyre runners in front of him, because he really needs, like you say, it was a crucial start of the race for Byrne, but for Pavia also, because he really needs to make the most of those tyres before they, I can only imagine these have about 4 or 5 laps in them, even with the lower temperatures of a night race. I feel like he really needs to get on with it here, because the longer he waits, Josh, the harder this race is going to be for him.
Yeah, 100%, and obviously the type of this circuit that we have here, there's a lot of stop-start segments, so if your tyres are starting to go off, you're really going to feel that. And even with the cars, with the extra downforce they now have, everybody knows to tell, it's still going to give you a bit of a challenge if you don't have that traction coming out of the braking zone. See Andrew here, he's just tucking in behind McAllister, and like you said, with those super soft tyres, seems to be sitting quite comfortably. The gaps are starting to build up a little bit towards the back of the field as well. We can see Pedersen about 8 seconds just behind the car ahead, and Toby Byrne already setting the timing boards ablaze with 107.3. And Toby, obviously, we're still at the first race of the season. It's Colin McAllister's now having a look down the inside. Is he going to make it stick? They're side by side into the apex. It's so close. And Colin McAllister is not going to make it stick from the looks of things there. But Toby, I was just saying, start of the season, it's important for the teams to get an early start in the championship by scoring some vital points if they can.
Exactly, and especially if you're someone like Iron Brew Racing, JR Wood won for Pavia, and I think Anderson wasn't involved in that, so not as crucial for Diaz, but yeah, a lot of these drivers have lost their teammate in that opening melee that we saw. We're actually down to 16 runners remaining in this race after 3 laps, such is the extent of that damage. Very big thing to note here, there is obviously 2 DRS zones. As you can see, Pavia closing right up behind McAllister in that second DRS zone, which sets him up nicely for turn 1, but it is the stretch of the front straight, Josh, that is a concern for these drivers, because as you can see, this is a very long straight, you know, front start finish straight, but it is followed by a flat out turn 1, and despite DRS not being available through turn 1, as you can see here, McAllister is still making a huge gain. He's going to look to the inside of Diaz even before we get to that turn 1, and he's through. Is there anything that Diaz can do on the outside? I don't think so. Andrew Pavia looking like he could maybe capitalise on this as well, really struggling to find a way through, and he's not, but McAllister up onto P2 on the hard compound of tyre. That is huge for this race. His next opponent is Byrne, 2.5 up the road on the Super Soft. This is very much in McAllister's court, I feel now, Josh, as we head to some replays.
Yeah, we're seeing Colin McAllister here at the start, having a pretty good run off the line, having a little bit to look to the inside, but you can see there just how close everybody is. At the front, obviously, you know, you want to make sure that you're getting yourself through there cleanly and just making sure that you're going to be in a race. You need to win the race to be there, basically, is where you need to be. And again, as they come up into this corner, very nice, clean driving from the guys. Not what we saw back down the field, unfortunately, but a great start there for Colin. And just need to buy his time. And as we ride on with myself now, you can see this is where the chaos was obviously starting to unfold. And unfortunately, with a circuit like this, all it takes a bit of shake it, backing up, and then you're straight into the car in front of you. And yes, another car rejoining there. So all a bit chaotic, Toby. And as we ride alongside now with Douglas Anderson, you can see he's having a pretty good run up the hill. And again, there's just not too much you can do. As soon as it backs up, you're a passenger at that point. And I think, Toby, we're going to see a lot of that this year, obviously moving to the newer spec cars. The margin for error is a lot harder to kind of avoid, isn't it?
It is, as you can see, Douglas highlighting there, he got on the sausage curb just behind the apex, and I think what happened there is because he hit that sausage curb, he just wasn't able to slow down, and I think such a small mistake creating such a huge pendulum of an issue as Danny Diaz looks to try return the favour on McAllister. These, again, it's crucial for both of these drivers because both Pavia and Diaz need to be ahead of McAllister in this stage because they are on the faster degrading tyres, which you can see under investigation now. Probably those incidents that we have just reviewed as we look at Diaz's teammate. And yeah, the incident involving cars 13, 27 and Spencer will be investigated. As a secondary investigation, I'm going to assume this is for the bigger melee that we saw, yeah, which is just multiple cars. There's too many cars to name in that melee, I think. But yeah, this is really beginning to look dire if you are Season 1 returnee. Andrew Pavia, JR Woodmont. Fantastic start, by the way, qualifying up in the T4, in P4, sorry. And the only cars he's driven prior to this, Josh, were Volkswagen Siroccos. So I think this is a bit of a change of pace, but the man from Connecticut is really doing what he needs to do to get scoring some solid points today following his teammate being out of the race. As we see, Danny Diaz has got DRS once again. McAllister obviously not in the DRS of Byrne, and that will put him under pressure from the Mexican as we head into turn 1. Danny Diaz right up behind him, following him through turn 1. Will he pull out and look to the inside? Yes, he will. Diaz down the inside, gets up on the curb, but no, the racing line favours McAllister, and now McAllister's turn on the inside allows him to retain that position with ease. But this is very good for McAllister, really beginning to become quite desperate, Josh, for Diaz and Pavia.
Yes, exactly. We've just seen that a penalty has been given there, a qualifying ban for myself, so I'm going to glance right past that quite quickly. But Toby, someone you were touching on earlier in the race, Byrne is one of the few drivers who has a teammate still left in here, and obviously as we start to enter the qualifying window, you're going to have to find yourself in a position where you need a teammate to work for you, whether it's backing up the cars behind, making overtakes on the cars ahead. So we see yet another qualifying ban come through for Anderson. But Toby, with a circuit like this, just how important are we going to find it if you don't have a teammate out there with you?
Well, this is it. I mean, obviously they can play a strategic role in the race as well, but just for the opening round in the Teams Championship, 9 times out of 10, you're going to score more points with 2 cars than you are 1. We've seen some rare explanations of that in real life, like Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, where it's maybe not as quite detrimental if you're having a fantastic performer consistently at the front. But Danny Diaz looking for another move on McAllister, attempts to nothing doing this time. But yeah, I mean, Byrne is up in the lead, but if something goes wrong for Byrne, he needs his teammate there to pick up those valuable points, and that is something now that, like you say, McAllister, Pavia, and even Underhill behind these guys cannot. And as you can see there, Pavia frustrated up behind Diaz, being advised by his team that he is wasting these tyres, and this is something we've been saying for the last 7 laps, I think, Josh. And Pavia, I think, might start falling away now, because super soft tyres 7 laps in, they're just not going to be up to spec compared to these, and you can see that up ahead actually. If you take a look at the timing score, McAllister has taken a second out of Byrne this lap.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing for McAllister. He just needs to be patient and let those tyres come in. Obviously, had quite a bit of pressure on from the cars behind with Diaz, but now as that window starts to close for the benefit that you would get from the super soft tyres, you can see James Underhill also now making gains on Pavia. It's going to be a question of who is first to dive into the pit lane. Again, a circuit like this, because it's so difficult to overtake, track position is so valuable, and we've seen that with some of the overtakes already in the early start of the race, people now holding position. So yeah, someone's going to have to take the gamble. The other teams will be looking at them to see what they can do, but if you're McAllister in a position like this right now, you are not going to be happy, because every battle that you've got, every time you're in dirty air, your tyres are losing grip. So Byrne's going to be loving this as he continues to now keep that 1 second gap just from the cars ahead, but it's going to be a real question of who's going to be the first to dive into the pits and take advantage of the fresh new rubber.
Yep, exactly that. As we can see, Valerio Campagnari going up the inside in a move spot that I would have not expected. Douglas Anderson tries to fight about the very next corner, but great move from Valerio Campagnari. That's not a position I would have expected anyone to be making moves in today, but Byrne will be thanking his lucky graces that those guys were battling, because he's now only 7 tenths ahead, so a further second lost in that lap despite them battling, Josh. So these super soft tyres are a big problem, and yes, there is the call. Byrne, box, race leader coming into the pit lane, and as they get tucked up behind him, does that give Diaz a little bit of an opportunity? They both have DRS, so this is a straight dogfight. Danny Diaz to the outside of turn 1. Will he go all the way around the outside? Is it a Vamos move for the Mexican? He's going to try and pull it off, but now McAllister has the inside line. This is going to be a fantastic battle, because McAllister has the inside line, but we've seen this racing line favour the outside all day long, because it turns to the inside. Where is Diaz? Has he got the move done, Josh? And he has just. Is McAllister going to do anything? No, he's on the grass, and Diaz up into the lead, crucially on their medium compound of tyres.
That was incredible, such a vital time to get an overtake done. See Olav also having a look now at the inside, and now it's going to change to the outside. Again, with a circuit like this, it's so difficult to get that track position, but if you can gain it, and all eyes now have to really be on Byrne. He's made the early pit stop, and with all this battling going on, that only gives him a bit of time back in hand, so he'll be the one that the teams will be watching to see if the tyres will be worthwhile swapping over to. McAllister again now in that kind of weird phase of the race where he can't really attack because he needs to let those tyres last a bit longer, but equally if he starts to drop back, Underhill's already just over a second behind. It's going to be so close. I would not want to be in Colin's seat at the moment, Toby. It sounds like he's got quite a lot of strategy to be thinking about.
He has, but he has a very vulnerable Diaz with no DRS and one of the longest straights. If you include that first one and get to the straight, it is the longest one we have on the calendar, and he will take it back up the inside. And he goes, yes, he can have that position for a lap, but I will take it back the very next. And McAllister resumes the lead, and that just shows to me, I think, Josh, that even the medium tyres are not looking anywhere near as competitive as the hard compound tyres at this stage. As we can see, Frazalov dropping a few positions, I think, to something similar in the background as we have. Is that Anderson now pitting as well? So we're starting to get a bit of a knock-on effect. Pavia also in the pit from his super soft tyres. So we are starting to see those super soft runners get out of Dodge and get some fresh boots on. Miserable day for our reigning champion all the way there in no man's land in P12. But there is Byrne trying to make some positions back, and he's tucked up behind his former teammate of Christopher Pettersson, and he'll be looking to use his DRS to get himself back in the fight. But yes, as you can see, look at them timing screens, Josh. McAllister has pulled out of DRS, and that's going to leave Diaz vulnerable to the next hard compound tyre runner of James Underhill.
Yeah, exactly. Now Diaz really has that question to handle, whether he's going to see what Byrne's doing. I'm sure the team will be keeping updated with the lap times and really see if he can make advantage of that new rubber. There's quite a lot of graining looking on the rear of those tyres. One of the beautiful things now about obviously using a set of coursers, we can see those details, and Underhill's already having a look. Looks like those hard compound tyres are starting to come into a bit of a league of their own, and as they continue up the straight here, it's looking very close. He's going to tuck in behind though and bide his time. Looked like he actually braked a bit too much there, and we see Olav having a look up the inside once again. This is going to be wheel-to-wheel stuff. Incredible racing that we're seeing back for this latest season. It's so good to be back, Toby, and it's amazing to see that even with these nighttime temperatures, the racing is still as close as ever.
Yeah, this is very interesting for me because it just makes me wonder, what if this was the daytime? What would the tyre wear be like? Because we're seeing some huge strategic implications coming from these different compound of tyres. As we can see, Underhill is tucked up around 5/10 behind his target Diaz as we swap to those guys now, heading into the second DRS zone. Now, the second DRS zone doesn't really provide any overtaking opportunity, but more of putting you in a position to get that slingshot onto the start-finish straight. And there is the call, Josh, finally. Danny Diaz being called to box.
Amazing stuff. Yeah, that's a bold move from the team. Obviously, they've seen what's going on around them, and they feel that it's time to make a move. And you can see Underhill just, I think it was a question of when, not if, he was going to get past Diaz there. So he'll be diving in. Danny will be a quick pit stop from the team. Hopefully, they can't afford to lose any time here because, again, that's the crucial thing with a circuit like this. On-track position is so much more valuable than perhaps fresh rubber. And as we see, Byrne is continuing to make waves up through the field. I'm sure he'll be happy with the progress he's making. And obviously, all these cars coming into the pit lane, it's just going to give him fresh air to really exercise the value of those tyres. Now, Toby, I'm trying to remember, there was someone earlier in the race, I think it was Lennon, was complaining that when he had the car set up, he was striking the curb, and that's what caused the accident. But it seems like some of the teams, particularly McAllister, throughout this race, we've seen the Ironbury team are able to kind of run the car a bit higher, and the curbs don't seem to be quite having the effect on those cars. So like you say, already we're seeing some differentiation in strategy and car setup.
Yeah, exactly that. And I mean, different situations as well. Obviously, it's one thing to hit the curb when you are just putting in consistent lap times. It's another thing to hit the curb when there's about 4 or 5 cars bunching up in front of you. And I think that did just catch Anderson out in those opening melees. But as we can see now, McAllister quite comfortably ahead, 2.5 ahead. Now, this is going to be a nail-biter in terms of strategy as McAllister gets the green light from his team, Josh, to absolutely use whatever is left as Underhill pits. So now McAllister might actually be under threat of an undercut, not just from the likes of Byrne and Diaz, but from Underhill as well, as we see many cars coming into pit lane now. And this will give us an idea of representation of where Byrne is in comparison. Obviously, our former race leader is going to jump up into P6. No one ahead of him has pit, but we will get an idea of what his lap time looks like. 3.7, Andrew Pavia sets the fastest lap in hot pursuit as well. And yes, McAllister 3.4 ahead. McDonnell is closing in on Olav ahead. Now these guys are a little bit out of sync. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on. Byrne up to P7, McAllister potentially under threat of an undercut.
Yeah, definitely, and obviously Byrne now has to kind of look behind him as well. Previer setting that fastest lap, that kind of makes you wonder, yeah, can we focus and work together to move up through the field? We know we've got the pace, the cars are obviously very quick, but if you're, like we've seen, throughout the first half of this race, if you're battling, you're not going to have that option. And a very early call immediately for McAllister to come in. They were telling him to use those tyres up, and he's saying, to be an undercut, shall we go along? Plenty of discussion going on there, so this is exactly what I was thinking there. McAllister kind of has, the pressure's all on him now. He has to floor it, he has to get that car value out of there, and you can see McDonald now is having a nice clean run down the straight. Again, a bit of clean air, a lot of value it brings here, and the race leader, or the informal race leader I should say, is now into the pits. We'll see how he gets on, where he's going to come back out, but I think Byrne again is our base point of reference here, Toby, and is McAllister going to have gained anything from going on that extra lap longer?
It's tricky because I understand why he's asking that, but you also got to bear in mind, Josh, there's only 6 laps left. If he doesn't pit this early, he's going to have no time to close that gap. Byrne does successfully undercut McAllister at least. Here comes James Underhill though, round the outside. Is he just going to manage to get out ahead? And he's on the super soft tyre. McAllister opted for another set of hards. Now, very interesting strategy there. Could he just be super comfortable on those compound tyre? And he wants to make sure he has no issues going to the end of the race. Obviously, Byrne pitted for, what was it, about lap 7 we saw? On these super soft tyres. That's very early, and the fact he now has to go 14 laps, or 13 laps, sorry, on those compound tyres to reach the end, as he's tucked up behind our reigning champion, having a day to forget in the likes of Kevin Jacobs, still running those hard tyres. So it is possible they can go 14 laps, but you can see now I think it is the time to get off them, because Byrne all over the back of Jackson here, not Jackson, sorry, Jacobs. But yeah, Byrne has a lot of tyre wear to contend with. McAllister seems to have picked a very interesting choice, especially chasing Underhill on fresh supers, but maybe he just doesn't want to have to worry about tyres till the end of the Grand Prix. We'll see how that pans out for him. So Byrne resumes the lead of the Australian Grand Prix. Pavia will follow him up into P2. A net gain of 2 places for Andrew Pavia, by the way, so great strategy coming from the JR Wood One boys so far. Underhill up into P4, and McAllister will resume his position in P4 himself. So very interesting. Now the strategies are sort of playing out. I think everyone's sort of back in sequence. You can see a little bit battle here. Diaz has got himself caught up in a little bit of a battle he wasn't originally a part of, hasn't he? Olaf Open looking like he's going to go all the way around the outside, which turns to the inside, and he puts a move on Danny Diaz. Where has this come from? Danny Diaz was leading the race earlier, and now he's just had to put the manners put on him by the Norwegian for P6.
It's incredible. I think Diaz is definitely going to be battle-tested and battle-tried after this. He has had battles every lap, it feels like. And yeah, just coming back to the tyre strategy, like you were saying there, obviously McAllister opting for another set of hards. I guess there is maybe something to be said about just being able to focus on setting the fastest lap times you can without having to manage those tyres. But, you know, Byrne and Ospreys guys have really said that, you know, the car from the outset has been quite quick. Obviously, their qualifying result demonstrating that they've got the pace. So it's a little bit of a rabbit in... what's the saying? Is it the rabbit in the hair? I can't remember what the saying is. But there's someone chasing down someone. I know that for a fact.
We'll call it the Pavia chasing down the Burn, but I think, yes, the actual saying is the tortoise in the hair. That's the one, yep. So Danny Diaz tucked up behind Olav Oddven, and this is race damning for the ART Panasonic Toyota. As you can see, he's going to look to the inside of the renowned NAR, the Norwegian Oddven debutant, putting the manners on him very early on, and nothing he can do. So this is crucial for Danny Diaz's race. He can't get involved in this top 5 battle because he's fallen into a different pack, and now that's effectively going to limit what he's able to do in these final 4 laps of the Grand Prix as things begin to settle down once more. But Diaz having a bit of a disaster as we see 2-second gaps forming between the top 4, so this is very much our battle pack at the moment. As you can see, it's a bit of a train, and it's come to that point where Danny Diaz's teammate Douglas Anderson, who's involved in the opening melees, is only a position behind him. So obviously if Douglas can get involved, he can maybe rear gun, and Diaz can focus on solely attacking Oddven, but he will get another chance as we head down the very long straightaway. But looking at the time, as Josh, looks like Underhill is beginning to make inroads on Andrew Pavia, and Pavia pits. So Pavia pits on lap 17. Was them super soft tyres just not able to go there? Was that a puncture? I don't know what has happened, but Pavia drops like a stone, and Underhill is up into P2, and we look to Danny Diaz doing anything, and Byrne completing the vibrations, Josh.
Oh my goodness, it's all kicking off with a few laps left now. The people who we thought maybe could stretch those tyres a little bit longer are complaining. Byrne, obviously a very experienced driver, being involved since the outset of this championship. He knows what it takes to compete for a championship, and he knows what it takes to win a race. So as much as there's pressure there, I think we may be able to see him kind of eat that out. But yes, again, it's just so interesting to see at such an early stage of the season. Are any team orders going to come into play? Like you said, Doug Anderson obviously making some good pace, and I think Diaz is under threat once again from Marcus Townsend. He's having a little look, so you got to wonder at this point, are the ART Panasonic Toyota team going to have team orders? Is it too early? I honestly don't know, but I think for the drivers, there's a great opportunity here to kind of stamp who's going to be leading. And it's a puncture for a race leader. Toby is into the pits. A puncture that is incredible. James Underhill has been gifted the race lead on a plate, and with a 2.5-second lead ahead of the car behind. Oh my goodness, scenes, Toby. I can't believe this. This is incredible that it's all kicking off so soon. Tyre deck, obviously so important around here.
Yeah, Byrne, as you can tell, quite imaginably, Josh, is furious at the decision to go back on a set of super soft tyres. We mentioned this, didn't we? It was a long way to go on them super soft tyres, and even though it is nighttime temperature, that's still 13 laps of throwing that tyre around, and it's not as if he could just warm them in either, was it? He had to get on with it to close that undercut distance because they were the first people to pit. So Byrne, obviously very unhappy with the strategy. It puts him outside of the points, and maybe the outlook for someone like Dan Diaz is beginning to look not that bad, actually. We'll take this P5 quite happily. But yes, Underhill gifted the race lead, but very important to note, he's also on them super soft compound of tyres. So although he pitted a few laps after Byrne, because he started on the hard compound of tyre, he's probably going to be at a tyre deficit towards the final lap, with obviously McAllister on 3 seconds behind. And oh my goodness, is this more drama? Okay, James, the fuel issue is getting worse. Now what could that be? Could that be fuel management? Could he just be running a little bit low on fuel? Maybe they've underfueled the car. Maybe it is an issue with the car itself. It'll be very interesting to see what happens for James Underhill, as that's not what you want to hear. And I think we've got more info live from the pit lane.
It's the fuel pump guys. Underhill reported issues around lap 12 and has been managing the issue since, but it's causing a lot of fuel burn. I'm not sure they'll make it.
Thank you for that, Ted, live from the pit lane. So fuel pump issues for James Underhill in the final 2 laps of the Australian Grand Prix. And Josh, you know yourself as a driver, managing your tyre deficit is one thing, having to do it with a faulty fuel pump is quite another.
Definitely, and it sounds like the team have been managing that for quite a while, and that's of course going to be magic from McAllister and the team to hear that. So now the question probably has to be, if you're McAllister's position, do you just sit and wait and pray for that issue to get worse and worse, or is he going to have to open up the taps and really go for it?
I would absolutely push like hell if it was me in McAllister's position, because I don't feel you can give McAllister any quarter in this situation. I think he needs to pressure Underhill into not being able to fuel manage. You know, he's obviously going to need to reduce his fuel usage anyway, so if you can put him in a position where if you go, look mate, if you fuel manage anymore, I'm going to be past you here. So I think as we head on to the final lap, Underhill feeling all the pressure of the world. Fuel is now critical as we go into the final lap of the Grand Prix. McAllister has the opportunity to make something wondrous happen here under the lights of Sydney Super Night for the final lap of the ISR AIC Season 5 Round 1, and Diaz still having an absolute miserable day. However, all things considered, Josh, I think he's in a better position than someone like Underhill, who now has only around a second over McAllister.
Definitely, at the rate we're losing drivers, he could well win the race, but as we see McAllister now really gaining in, there's only less than a second. This is going to be so close. Obviously we've got a big run down to the final straight here as well, a circuit like this, so if that DRS can get open, then McAllister, it's his race to win at this point. Underhill asking, will I make it? Oh my goodness, his mind is not, he's got to come in, not complete the lap. Oh my goodness, it's all kicking off, Toby, and all the drama kicking off for the start of the season. I absolutely love it.
This is very interesting stuff, because if he cannot complete an in-lap, he will be disqualified for not providing a fuel sample, and the team agree. Box to avoid disqualification. Underhill into the pits, and that on the last corner of the last lap gives Colin McAllister his first ever ISR AIC victory at the Australian Grand Prix, the Sydney Super Night, and it is 7th heaven for Colin McAllister from Glasgow. Quite different heat temperatures to that of Glasgow, but I'm sure that will affect him in no way whatsoever as he remains cool throughout the entire Grand Prix, everyone falling apart around him. What a race victory for Colin McAllister, Josh.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was a race that had ups, it had downs. We were saying at the start he was under so much pressure going on those hard tyres. Was it going to work? And clearly was the right compound to be using. An incredible result for him, and obviously a long time overdue as well for a race winner. It has been quite the race, Toby. Plenty of drama right up and down the field. Obviously that massive incident at the start. Simply incredible.
Simply incredible is the word Sydney Super Night produces. Colin McAllister takes his first ever victory in the ISR AIC. James Underhill has to settle for second. Could have been a whole lot worse if that issue developed any sooner than it did. Olaf Odford on his debut takes his podium. It reminds me of another Scandinavian who did that in the form of Kevin Magnussen in 2014. Marcus Townend takes a very respectable P4 ahead of the two ART Toyotas lining up P5 and 6. Jonathan Carrera goes quietly unnoticed and claims a P7. And the McDonald brothers for Macca Motorsport take E8 and P9, and Philip Blum rounds out the points in P10. Valerio Campagnari, there's something about him in position 11, isn't there? We saw this all through season 1. He was always so close but so far, and he will not be happy that that trend seems to be continuing. But yes, what an absolute incredible first race, Josh, and your top 11 doesn't quite represent the chaos that we saw, does it? It was just absolutely insane, drama everywhere, and as we see, Andrew Pavia claims that coveted water is fake fastest lap point and earns a point despite finishing P14, so his efforts didn't go unnoticed, Josh, but wow, what a result.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously we made a bit of a step up in terms of machinery for this season, and I think a lot of the teams may be getting caught out by that. Obviously the massive chaos that we had at the start of the race probably didn't help. A few drivers picking up qualifying bans as a result, but yeah, you have to say, you know, Colin McAllister and the team there have done absolutely incredible. Some of the other teams will have gained some valuable data from what compound works well with the car, how they handle that with the dirty air going on around, but I can't believe, Toby, it's been a long time overdue to come back racing. Some of the same faces, but just an incredible start as we see the standings now overall.
Yeah, so obviously these standings mirroring your race results as usually is the case in the first round, at least in the driver's standings. Colin McAllister claims 25 points for Iron Brew Racing, getting himself that first win. James Underhill will be thanking himself for P2 at the very least. But here we go, Josh, the team standings. McAllister does enough to put Iron Brew at the top of the standings despite Lennon's issues, and Northern Lights Racing, courtesy of Underhill and ART Panasonic Toyota, are tied on points for second. Renown just behind with 16, Osfoo's behind with 12, and then you have the likes of Winfield JSR tied with Macca Motorsport, and a singular point for JR Wood 1 Racing thanks to that Water is Fake fastest lap award point. So we were talking about the need for a teammate. Iron Brew didn't need a teammate today. They had a certain Scotsman on a mission, but yeah, very lucky stuff for Northern Lights Racing, who just managed to maintain P2 in the championship. But Josh, what a first round, and we've got another 9 to go.
Yeah, exactly. The championship is only getting started, and if the drama is going to be as busy as it was in this first round, then I honestly can't wait to watch the rest of it. I think it's been a long overdue race that a lot of people have been wanting to follow, and with so much drama, not only with the drivers, but with the tyre compounds, with the fuel, it's shaping up to be quite the season. We've got some great tracks on the calendar, and I keep saying it, Toby, but I'm so glad that we're back, and we're back racing once again.
It is fantastic. Sydney has produced, quite literally, a super night of racing. Thank you so much for joining us here for round 1 of the return of the ISR AIC. Next time out, we head over to Japan for Twin Ring Motegi for round number 2. We'll see you then very soon. Until then, thank you so much. I've been Toby Byrne, this has been Josh Martin, and until next time, goodbye.
It's time to land the Barracuda! Yeah!